What, good morning.
Good morning.
This is my second podcast recording. And I have a most special guest with us this morning. Her name is Sarah Jane. And I really wanted to have Sarah on because she has made a phenomenal progress in her life, in her and her kids' lives. So I'm going to go ahead and continue introducing Sarah, and kind of like how we met and things like that, and why I'm doing this recording today, this podcast. So Sarah and I met, we were working at a McDonald's in Tauranga, and Sarah was like my boss, kind of like when we were on shift together. And Sarah and I we just clicked, didn't we, from the beginning, and we could relate to each other on many levels.
Yeah.
And so I reached out to Sarah because I moved to the South Island, and Sarah kind of went on maternity leave, and we linked back up again when I moved down to the South Island, and I reached out to her and asked her if she would like to become part of what did I say? If
you wanted me to work with you, just work alongside with you and whatnot. I remember that day like it was yesterday.
Yeah. So I asked Sarah if she wanted to work with me, and essentially what that meant was I would work with her around her cycle and stuff, and because I knew her background and kind of what she was dealing with, I swooped on in there trying to save the day.
Mine was shining up.
Yeah. So she said yes.
Oh yeah.
She said yes, guys. And that was over a year ago now, wasn't it?
Yeah. Feel like a year. So much has happened, but yeah, a year ago.
Yeah. And so every week we would meet up and virtually, and I would guide Sarah through supporting her to navigate the changes in her life and what she wanted to cultivate and bring to life. And as we're sitting here today, she is now in the deep south in Invercargill, aren't you? And yeah, so we're gonna sort of go on this journey together and take you with us because it has been huge. So this is essentially Sarah's story, and this is what this podcast is about, is sharing our stories so that we can maybe help someone else as well. So we'll be covering things like relationships and boundaries, and having the hard conversations that need to be had in order to get to where we want to be. So without further ado, let's start with where it began.
Oh, honestly, I did a little bit of journaling, and it when it took a turn for the worse was in 2019. That's when everything started to crash down, and my environment definitely showed that 100%. And as much as I knew what was happening, I was just so completely oblivious to it, just carried on and did the whole hustle through. I was working at Macca's, I was doing nights. So my partner at the time, his drug addiction kicked in really, really bad. And there were nights where his come down was so bad that he was hallucinating when I would have to leave to go to work. And I would choose going to work and leaving the kids in that situation, which was really, really hard for me. And it progressed, as you would know, with that kind of addiction. It was meth.
Yeah.
So, yeah. And 2019 was that year of what? Yeah, that was the year that really booted me up the arse. There's just so much around that time. It's really hard because a lot comes into my head.
Yeah.
So much.
What's the one thing that was really huge for you in regards to a lesson?
The lesson in itself is to quit putting others ahead of me. That was the biggest thing, is that I was just wearing myself down to keep others happy, content, and it was exhausting, completely exhausting, you know. And we think that this is as good as it's going to get, you know, and it's so not. Like, oh yeah.
Yeah, we did a podcast. Me and Jazzy did a podcast yesterday, and it was around self-awareness, and one of the things that came up was how we think that, you know, in whatever situation we're in, we think that that's as good as it's going to get, or that's just the way the cookie crumbles, as my nan says. And you know, and it's not until I don't know, I know, because would you say that you were asking for like some level or some guidance from the universe before I reached out to you?
Kind of.
Yeah.
Not really, but sort of in a way. But
Not specific.
No, it wasn't specific because I was so clouded. And if that did come on, I wouldn't have seen it.
Yeah.
You know, I was, you know what, COVID, and we had this conversation as well. COVID for me, yep, it sucked, and I know a lot of people suffered and whatnot throughout that time, but it was also a blessing in disguise because I was on maternity leave anyway, but you know, good old TikTok sprung up quite a lot of things for me, people sharing their stories and whatnot, and I think that helped as well with more self-awareness on myself, but it was still not, it was still, yeah, like it was still kind of like in that cloudy moment of, because that my environment was so fit still, that kind of just still took over that. Yeah, before you stepped in and actually really shook things up.
Yeah. I feel like that's like an actual understatement, eh?
Yeah.
Yeah. But it's sort of not until, I don't know, I feel like there's a point in our journeys where we just start, we're over it, and we start to question things, and even in our clouded mind we're like, okay, something's not right, like
Yeah.
and sometimes that's enough to sort of slowly change things. And I feel like, that in itself is a huge testament to how things progressed for you after we started working together. Yeah.
It was just so funny because it was just that morning that you reached out to me, I had created my own affirmation, and I was saying it to myself as I was driving back home that morning from dropping the kids off at school. I am completely blank on that affirmation, but I was just saying it on the way home repeatedly, and then I got home and your message was there. And it was like, well, damn, like that was I was buzzing that whole time. And then the messages that we were saying back and forth, my ears started ringing. Did you remember that? Like,
yeah,
it started ringing. I was like, oh my gosh, like, ding, 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 ding.
yeah. Those things are definitely things to pay attention to. I want to really get into like the meat of this conversation, because it's so important, and it's also swirling around in my own personal environment. So there was a point in our time working one-on-one together where you said something to me, but we got on this topic of moving. Do you want to talk a little bit about that?
What do you need to bring up a little bit more? I'm having a blank moment.
So we were talking, and then you
yes,
or
yeah. So
why did you want to?
Moving was such a huge calling for me. Before that conversation, it was just coming out repeatedly, and no matter where I went, it was just like South Island, South Island, South Island, and it was for me, it was like the cord cutter and the release of everything that had happened in the North Island, a fresh start, and trimming off all of that, releasing that, and bringing in a fresh new beginning for the kids and I. And I knew that with moving, I had to ask for support, and that there was the hardest move for me in itself, was asking for that help. I had to reach out to a family member in particular, and making that phone call was the hardest. I was shaking. I had to actually get out of my house and park up somewhere to talk to this family member, and they said that they would help me out, and so it was, and it was just like a kick in that moment of like, okay, we've started that now, and so it's like, yes, enough. So like, yeah, that was the beginning of releasing all of that. Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah. That's how I saw it within myself. It wasn't running away. It was, I needed that fresh new beginning for myself and the kids, because keeping, like, there's no wrong move in life. The only wrong move was keeping myself stuck wondering what if, and I didn't want to do that anymore. It was like, we need to jump and go. And there's quite a lot of quotes on that. When it feels scary to jump, that's when you jump. And that's what I did. I did a huge jump. It was a massive jump.
Phenomenal. Like,
Yeah.
groundbreaking.
Yeah.
And I really I celebrate you a lot, because fuck, you just blow me away. But I really celebrate you for all of the handling all the shit that was thrown at you while in the midst of that transition. And I really want to highlight that, because that's what happens, when we declare that we want something, and we start making these moves, and we start following our intuition and our nudges, and like following these, like over here, so many things can come into your and onto your path. And God, I've dealt with that firsthand so many times. And it truly, how we deal with that, when we face it head on, and just not necessarily what's the word ignore the emotions. That all of the emotions that come up when something like your car needs fucking fixing.
Oh my gosh, yes, there was that.
The person that you become to make all that stuff happen.
Yes.
So that you can have a safe car to drive you and the babies, you and the kids down here. It's like, for those of you who don't know, so if you're listening outside of New Zealand, we are in New Zealand, but we have two islands, so the North Island and the South Island. And to get from where Sarah was living to Invercargill, it's like, if she did that trip in one day, it's probably like a full day trip, because, and I've done that before. It's like a 16-hour drive.
Yeah.
And so you definitely need to have a legal car. But tell us about all those things that you had to overcome in such a short amount of time.
I had to step up for myself. I was so completely reliant on others and doing things for me. You know, like a family member was supposed to come and help me sort out my car, and he didn't end up turning up and didn't make contact with me or anything like that. And I was really gutted. I was like, okay, this is shit. But at the same time, again, it was a blessing in disguise, because it was like, okay, you can sit there and mope about it, or what are you going to do about it? And it made me step up and get it sorted for my car, you know. And again, I had to reach out to people for help for that as well. And it did suck for me having to reach out, because it's like, you know, I should be able to do this all by myself. You know, we have all of those thoughts coming in. I should be able to do this, yada, yada, yada. But no, I did. And that year, it built up a lot of confidence in myself as well, with just getting up for me, getting shit sorted. And I'm so freaking proud of myself for that, because, you know, a lot of people will go, well, that's what you should be doing anyway. And it's just like, cover it up. You know, we're all different. We all have our own stories, our own backgrounds. And with my background, to be able to do that for myself and the kids is like
huge.
Yeah, it is huge, you know. And it doesn't actually matter, well, it doesn't matter what other people think. For me, it's like, fucking yeah, girl, get it.
Yeah. Yeah.
There was a lot of things that came at me at that time. A lot of little, it was kind of like the universe saying, okay, if this is where you want to go, we're going to chuck all these little complications at you, and let's see if you actually really want to get to that destination. That's kind of what it was like. If you really want to get to the destination, what are you going to do to get there? And so, there were a lot of little niggly things that I had to do to get there, but I got there. I did it.
Yeah, you did. And I love that you're proud of yourself too for that.
Yeah. Hell yeah.
So let's talk about making hard decisions and making hard decisions and having hard conversations.
What popped into my head straight away was the kids starter with hard conversations, and that was really hard, because there were so many things popping into my head. Am I doing the right thing? Like taking the kids away from him. He was not happy about it at first and whatnot. And what, you know, I got his side of it as well. It was like, yep. But it was something that we needed to do. And so it was really a matter of sticking to my own boundary of that, and not just being like, well, you know what, I'm just going to please him and just say, you know, and yada, yada, yada. So that it was hard. And when he was in jail at the time as well, so when he got out, it was even harder, because I was having to see him face to face and being like, oh my God.
And it was really close to the time when you were leaving.
Yeah, it was. It was only like two weeks away, I think it was, when he got out. And so it was having that hard conversation, and it was, it was really hard. And I did have to talk to him, and I was just like, you know why we're doing this, right? And he understood. It was actually I actually created so many scenarios in my head before he came out of what it was going to be like. And it was all bad, of course, you know, you know, but it was really good. And he understood why we were doing this and whatnot. And so it was just keeping to that. And the day of moving was the worst, because, you know, the kids were breaking down, he was breaking down, and so it was like, oh my God, okay, I feel like that was like another tester in itself. Like,
Mm.
what are you going to do? Because I'm so used to bowing down and just being like, okay, no, don't worry about it.
Yeah.
It was hard. It was really hard.
Because it's so much, it's so much easier to give in, right? Well, I shouldn't say give in, but it's so much easier to just, because I remember I've done this so many times as well. Like I've moved, and then my ex-partner, you know, we like get back on track again, and then I'm like, okay, I'm gonna go back, and then, or it's the other way around, is like I'll leave and he didn't want me to leave, and it's so much easier to be like, okay then.
Yeah, yeah.
But the regret is way worse.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I wanted to, because for both of us, you know, we were boundaryless, you know.
Yeah.
We had no boundaries, didn't have a clue what boundaries were. I remember doing a lot of personal development with boundaries and getting clear on what actually is a boundary and all that kind of stuff. And I just realized, oh my God, like I am a fucking doormat.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
So when we started learning, when I started sort of guiding you through boundaries and stuff, and I remember several occasions being on Zoom with you, and you like in the moment exercising a boundary.
Straight away, I had like a memory, like.
Do you want to talk about that? Like,
we were having an online session, and I was in the garage. I was in my own little personal space that I had developed, and I said to my partner at that time, I was like, right, I am having a session at the moment. Please stay behind that door. Do not interrupt me. Please keep the kids on that side as well. I'm not asking too much. It's just time for me now to have this conversation. And babe, was it like 3 or so times or something rather he came in? Oh, I actually can't remember. Like he just came in so many times, and it was really embarrassing. And at the same time, like I was like, I really had to stand up and be like, listen, like that. There was just, it just meant nothing to him at all. And so, yeah, there was plenty of moments. And it was actually when we just began having our sessions as well. I remember that one. He came in, and it was with Jake as well.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So about essentially, you know, I wouldn't be surprised if not many people were aware of this, but essentially boundaries are teaching people how to treat us.
Yeah.
And if we're people that have had no boundaries and just let people, we don't see it as letting people walk all over us when we're in that when we're in an environment like that. We have no idea.
No. And it wasn't a matter of being a bitch about things. You know, it was just hey, this is what I'm asking for. It's not too much to ask for. Please respect that. You know, and it's really amazing when you start putting those in place, because you actually start to see how their actions are when you start stepping up in that way. And when I really developed the confidence in doing that a lot more, it was you know, they're so reliant on us being that doormat that it was kind of like for him at that time, it was like, oh, you're just blah, 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 you're just blah, 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 blah. And it's like, wow, you know, that's when you really know they have absolutely no respect.
Mm.
And so that's when you have to respect yourself and
Mm.
be like, eh, get out.
Yeah.
And when he ended up in jail again, one of the biggest boundaries that I had to set for myself and the children was not to be asked to be bailed at my place again.
Yeah.
That big boundary right there was saying no.
Yeah, that was huge.
Yeah, like there all the other times he was bailed back, and it was just the same routine, that same loop happening over and over and over again. This time it was no, and so that was a huge moment for myself right there, was getting that boundary. It was like a little celebration, and like, look what happens when you start doing this. It's not a matter of being mean, it's just respecting yourself and your environment, you know. And I could see within my environment as well just how much was actually clearing up. It's not just yourself. You start, well, yeah, it is yourself. You start taking more better care of yourself,
Yeah.
your environment. You know, it just goes in so many ways.
Mm.
Yeah.
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 It's yeah, it reminds me of my journey with boundaries as well. And as I said before, you know, I had none at all, and I was in a relationship where the guy that I was with was really strong in his boundaries, and I learned boundaries from him to, you know, to a point, but then I had to kind of go off and do my own sort of investigating about my own boundaries and who I was as a person. So when I think about boundaries and him as a person, is he was really sure of who he was, so he knew who he was. And the reason that I want to say some things that are unconventional, and I want to come at it from, you know, my story, because as you're talking about this, it reminds me of how essentially it's like we're telling kids to listen, you know. And I can imagine that's how he felt with me as well, and that because I had no boundaries, I never knew how to respect other people's boundaries.
Yeah.
And so, you know, this is going back, this is going back many a few years now, maybe like 5 years or so. And yeah, it just, you end up being such a different person than when you had no boundaries. You're like a completely different person. Yeah. And why I say that it's essentially boundaries are essentially about teaching people how to treat us. It is because a lot of us are so fucking damaged, and we are, you know, children still in adults' bodies, because we haven't learned, you know, how to regulate ourselves, or we haven't dealt with that stuff from our childhood, or and things like that, you know. And so another thing I wanted to mention was that, you know, despite we're not talking about this to You know, it's nothing to do with blame or anything like that. It's, you know, because I've seen the transformation, and just, you know, it's not like but the transformation that I've seen in the two of you, even apart, that you've shared with me, you know, has been pretty big.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And do you know what? I'm actually, because of course we still communicate with the kids and stuff and whatnot.
Mm.
But what he's doing for himself now is freaking amazing. He's got a job. He's getting his license sorted out, and so it's not a complete thing of, oh, I hate you, blah blah blah, you know, being all immature about it. It's like this cord cutter is like freaking amazing for us both and for himself as well. Look at him. He's getting himself sorted. I'm getting myself sorted. He's not completely reliant on me. I'm not reliant on him. So it's like so good for the both of us, you know, and all you can do is just wish others the best of luck on their own journey as well. So yeah.
Yeah. That's a really important thing in itself, because at the moment I'm seeing a lot of, you know, I don't know, my TikTok algorithm is like so effective. But, you know, I'm just seeing a lot of, what's the word? Just baby daddy stuff, you know, and mum's just
So toxic, eh? It's
yeah,
really toxic, and it's
yeah,
amazing. It's, and I'm a I'm a I have soaked in shit from TikTok as well. We've had this
yeah,
discussion. So a lot of people soak that in. And so it's like, oh, baby daddy's this, baby daddy's that, blah, 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 blah. And it's
yeah,
like, you know, how about you guys bring in some more self-awareness on yourself and let's say, like, you know, what are you doing to help the situation? Because, I mean, at the end of the day, like, it's the kids that, you know, these kids, like, we don't want to pass this down to them, you know.
mm,
And fortunately, I've, you know, because I was doing the best that I could with what I had, so I've
yeah,
already cut down,
yeah,
you know, bits and pieces to the kids, and so now it's kind of like, well, you know what, let's just up to you guys, come on. I mean, putting that stuff out is just kind of a little bit silly. So yeah,
yeah,
I don't want to do that. Just wish them the best on their journey, and just, you know, focus on yourself. Yeah.
yeah. There's an unconventional thing also, is that, you know, keeping I'm doing air quotes for those who are listening to the podcast on audio, you know, keeping the children from their fathers. And I'm very passionate about this topic because, you know, there's a lot of things that need to happen, including, you know, I don't care who anybody is, we've all got shit to work through, and we can't sit here thinking and, you know, believing that our shit don't stink.
Yeah.
And it's not about, if we feel like we have to blame the other person for why we ended up like this or whatever, or why we're in the situation we're in, whatever that situation is for you, there's work that needs to be done there.
Yeah.
And if, you know, speaking from my own personal experience, I had to clean up my own shit.
Yeah.
A shit ton of it.
Yeah.
And you know, I've nearly lost my son to the system, and he's had to go and live with my family for like periods of time so that I could sort my own stuff out. And I have had a boundary in place for a while where my son didn't interact with his father for, like, he hasn't been in his life for many years, like very on and off. And he has things to work through still, and still so do I. They're not the same things, obviously, but we don't have to. We don't have to facilitate this relationship with them. Because if they're going to constantly break promises and let their children down and speak to the mother like absolute shit, then it's not cool at all. And you know, that's something that I'm very strong in, and I stand very strong in. That is, if you can't communicate with me, and if you can't have an adult conversation with me, then I'm not talking to you at all, because I'm not condoning or enabling this type of behavior. Because I don't want my child to be that person. So, you know, there's a lot that we can take ownership for. There's so much.
Reflecting on so much back in the day, it's like, you know, it's so easy to point that finger and blame the other, and then you just have these, it's really beautiful when that self-awareness kicks in, you know, and you look back and you think, oh my gosh, okay, wow.
Yeah.
wow, Sarah, wow. But that's cool though. It's not putting yourself in that guilt, you know, because I mean, pat yourself on the frickin' back. You're looking back at it now with a different perspective, you know. That's the cool thing, you know.
Yeah. Not playing victim to your circumstances. That's a very huge topic that
yeah. Oh, I've played victim so many times. And
same.
It's even with friends, you know, I did it with friends, you know, and oh my gosh, like the manipulative attitude that I had, holy, that's what it is at the end of the day. It was manipulation, and I was a freaking queen at that, you know.
Yeah.
And
same.
yeah, you know, but it's also, like I said, you know, it's really awesome to look back on that now and just be like, okay, you know, and yep, I have, yes, I've lost friends now, but that's okay, because this is like a moment for me now. This is like, this fresh new beginning is me. It's focusing on me or bringing others in. And yeah, I just want to be comfortable with myself first. I want to know me first. You know,
it's like really, sorry.
It's no, it's the same. It's just like a relationship as well, you know.
Yeah.
Don't you want to know yourself first before jumping into a relationship and not knowing yourself and
Yeah.
then, you know, yeah,
I
that's
say that to Zayden a lot, to my son, and I'm just like, son, know yourself first
yeah,
before you have any sort of, intimate relationship. And we can't tell them who to be friends with and who not to be, but
yeah,
if he has at least that awareness that friends are fucking overrated, then you know he might take that on. But
but
I
it's seedlings though. That's the
yeah
thing. You've tested those seedlings.
yeah yeah it's really fucking blows my mind how the types of relationships and people we attract
Oh my gosh, yes.
when we're like not our true self,
Yeah,
and how difficult it is to end connections, especially in an adult manner.
yeah,
um yeah, how difficult that is, because
yeah.
we don't want to. I don't know. I feel like we think that I don't think this anymore because yeah. But I think I used to think that because we're friends we have to hold on to each other for like life. But
Oh my
that's
gosh.
that's a mentality. That's a relationship mentality as well, because I don't know. We're taught like this forever fucking story, and it's just a load of shit.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I know that. Like straight away, what came into my head as you were mentioning that, just how looking back on some of my friendships, just how fake it actually was. You know,
Mm,
like I wasn't myself. I'm not just putting blame on the other, but yeah, I wasn't
mm,
myself. So
yeah,
it's like a yeah, staying in it to yeah, this is the life, blah 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 blah. Yeah, no,
yeah,
yeah, looking back on it, oh yeah, no,
yeah.
it is.
There's so many lessons, um, so much wisdom that comes from these connections, because it really highlights to you in whatever relationship capacity. It highlights. I'm thinking back to a recent situation last year where um I had a friend who, I kind of went to her for when things were hard
Mm,
in my last relationship, and that kind of set up a it set up what's the word, a boundaries, no, not boundaries, it set up this framework. I don't even know what other word to use right now, my mind is like meh, but for the way that our relationship and
mm.
connection was
Functioning,
operating or
yeah,
designed.
yeah,
And once I started, you know, working on myself and stuff like that, I started noticing like, okay, this is not the kind of thing that I want to set up. And it was really interesting to me because, again, it's you feel guilty for sort of either distancing yourself or putting yourself first,
mm,
especially when if there's like a full-on cut ending.
Yeah.
Um,
I relate to this 100%. Yeah, that's
and
exactly what happened.
I make no apologies, because for me it's just really about, it's not about the other person.
Yeah.
It's about me. Just honoring my own journey and how I feel, and knowing that that's okay as well. Like, we don't need to.
It's not the end of the world.
Yeah.
We make it out like it's a big sad sob story, but it's just that y'all has been through what you've been through in your relationship, and now it's just time to part ways. It's just like your life train. Some people are going to stay on, some people are going to hop off. That's okay. Not everybody is going to last with you to your destination. It's okay.
Yeah.
I get that.
Yeah.
Because I felt like that too with my relationships, and they came to a complete yeah.
I think I think what's really coming in strong is that, it's okay to end things if it's not working for you.
Yeah.
And this is essentially what this whole conversation is about.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, quit trying to make it work. You shouldn't have to try so hard to keep something going in a relationship. Like, it's just that flow, you know.
Yes.
It's so corny, but it's
Yeah.
true though, you know. Yeah, and that's what it was like, and that's the connection that I love between us. It's not hard. It's not difficult. We don't overcomplicate things. It's just simplicity.
Yeah.
You know.
Simplicity. Yeah.
Yeah.
Let us change the direction and talk a little bit about this thing that we were briefly talking about, where we don't want to know what's wrong. So by that I mean, we can be witnessing our life, and all these things are happening to us, air quotes, but really for us. And we can choose whether or not we actually want to do something about it, so that we can get the problem solved. So let's talk about why we don't want to know what's wrong when we feel like something's wrong.
It's just like we want to carry on living in rainbows and butterflies and unicorns, and life isn't always.
And that something's gonna like magically make things go away or make things right.
Yeah.
But the thing is that we really, like, the power is like actually in our hands.
Yes. And a perfect example was before moving here. I was applying for houses and whatnot, and I kept getting sent me an emails, unsuccessful, unsuccessful, unsuccessful. And so I was just sitting there and accepting it. It was like, okay, something's wrong. All right, I'll just keep going and whatnot. It just got to that point where I was like, you know what? No, I'm not going to accept that. And I called up a particular property manager, And I just said to him, I was like, hey, I just want to know why was my application unsuccessful? And he brought it all up, and he was like, we're kind of a little bit iffy with people moving from the North Island to the South Island. And I was like, okay, well, what can I do from here to make, what can I do? Because there was actually nothing else wrong. It was just the iffy feeling he had with me being in the North Island. And so it was just stepping up and just, it was communication. That's all that was for me, to communicate. To, like you said, it's within us to step up and do something. It was just communication. And so it was setting things in place of, I'm not going to be that muck around person. I'm here. This is what I want to do. Let's go from here. What can we do from here? And we chatted, and in the end of the conversation, he was like, you know what? I actually still really think that I turned you down. He's like, I'm so sorry for that. And I was like, don't be sorry. Just let's carry on, okay?
Mm-hmm.
So that there was like, it was hard for me, because that's all I was doing at first, was just accepting all these unsuccessful things, and all I had to do was just step up and communicate and find out what was wrong. You know, I had created so many scenarios of what could be wrong. You know, that's what we do to ourselves. We overcomplicate things so much, and that's what I did. But it turned out that it was just simple communication.
Yeah. And like what I love about that is that you actually also taught him something.
That's it. And I did, because he was very fearful of it was all going to turn to custard, and that in the end I wouldn't end up moving. So it was a big step for him as well. He was, his ass was on the line as well, because if this did all fall through, you know, he has to keep the landlord happy. They want the money flowing in weekly with rent, you know. So it was huge. His ass was on the line. So it was, like you said, it was a big, huge step for us both. So yeah.
Yeah. A few things popped in for me there as well that I kind of want to touch on, and it's that feeling of letting people down. And you know, sometimes we kind of can take it upon ourselves to make letting people down something that's bad.
Yeah.
And you know, say for instance that his fear came true, that you were gonna let him down. And immediately what popped into my head was, you know, the only person that we let down is ourselves when things like that happen. And so I was just picturing you having let him down, you know, and but also in the same image I see you stepping up for yourself and not allowing or not accepting yourself to let yourself down. And that right there is the biggest, you know, the hugest thing in itself, because when we are 100% responsible and self-reliant on ourselves, we don't accept letting other people down. And also, if there was any change in anything, we would immediately communicate that to the other party.
Yeah.
And this is, healthy conversation, healthy communication. Just being open and honest about everything that's happening with the other person. Yeah.
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 Yeah. Yeah.
Just where, so we've talked about a lot, and I really want to hear what you guys are up to now, and what your what any plans are that you have, like if you've seen any scene with your mind's eye, what you want to do and things like that.
For me, from here, it's mainly focusing on myself and the kids. So that's the main thing that's just popping in right now. I don't want to think too far ahead. Otherwise, I'm just taking from the moment. But
and you know what? When people get asked that question, I feel like we think that we have to have this huge goal to work towards. But no, my purpose right now is me and my kids, and that's enough.
Yeah, that's it. That's enough right there. I had this realization, it was just yesterday. I was thinking about it. I was just like, what am I actually wanting to do from here? And then I had to snap myself out of it, because I'm way too ahead. Like, what are you going to do for work? What are you going to do for this? What are you going to do for that? X, Y, and Z. And it's just like, hang on a second. Look where you're at right now. This is pretty cool right now, what we're doing. We're just cruising. We are exploring different places and whatnot. Few ideas have popped in here and there, and it's mainly been health. So it's like, let's focus on the inner gut health and whatnot, and do something from there. So that's kind of like one of the things there. But rather than that, it's nothing too far ahead at the moment. I'm just enjoying it for now, and like you said, that's enough.
Yeah, I love that. I love that so much, and I'm excited for you to come back into alignment with your cycle, and and actually have that support the health thing that you want to focus on as well, and focusing on the kids, because I mean, your ties to the South Island, you have family there, which is really, really awesome. And just cultivating those relationships, and the beauty of relationships when you are self-aware, when you're working on your inner environment, it's different. It's totally different.
Yeah. Oh yeah. 100%.
I have this coughing fit.
And I know I'm going back now, but I think this in itself is kind of like a cup of tea. When we were on that ferry to the South Island, it was amazing because my cycle, I was 53 days late for my cycle. Okay. The moment we hopped on that ferry, it was within 10, 15 minutes. I was popping. And then it was the next day, I was day one of my cycle, day one of my bleed. So it was kind of like just a huge, it may not have really felt like that, but it was just like my body's way of just being like, let's release go. So like you said, now it's like, focus on me, my cycle awareness and whatnot, and seeing how things go from here.
Yeah.
So that was really cool. I really, that tripped me out. And I had you in my head like straight away. I was like, I can't wait to tell Taylor.
Yeah. I mean, being excited about your period is a game changer.
No, it is. Honestly, it is.
And I knew that would happen as well, because there was so much tension and stress and build up from that, that I knew that once you got down here, it would come.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
And it's just because it's just our cycle is, especially in that season, in the bleeding and menstruation, which is winter, it's such a huge letting go and recalibration, and it's a lot of that's not the word. It's a lot of metaphorical energy, and definitely a whole other topic, but I'm really looking forward to diving into those cycle stuff with other people, because I can't just talk about this by myself. Yeah. Is there anything that you want to share with the audience? If anyone's sort of at a crossroads in their life or anything like that, what you would suggest they do?
Straight away, take this as your sign to jump. That's the thing that comes into mind. Take this as your sign to jump. If you are sitting at that crossroads wondering what the hell to do, jump. That's the first thing that comes into mind.
Yeah, build your wings on the way down.
Yep.
That's a huge metaphoric and symbol to me as well, because I used to think that you had to already have your wings.
Yeah. No, you don't.
Yeah.
You really don't. Take this to jump. Focus on yourself and learn to put that energy back to yourself. Because it's a good thing putting it into others and draining your own battery.
Yeah. Yes.
I just said this recently. We're so quick to charge our phones when they go down, yet we're not like that with ourselves. We get so drained that we think, okay, this is the best that there is. No, there isn't. Love yourself for life and jump.
Yeah, and I was going to say that because I saw your post on that earlier, but with your yes, this stuff is like common sense. If the battery is low, charge it. Otherwise you can't use it. And it's also the same with if when we're overdoing it and overworking ourselves, and then we get sick.
Yeah.
And that can also be, head stuff as well, and we're just running all these old stories and shit,
Yes.
and it just makes us go downhill.
Yeah.
And we find ourselves at the bottom in fucking bed. But
Okay.
how much has learning about your cycle supported you? Because essentially this is, we worked through the seasons of your cycle every week to support you to make these changes. Like, this wasn't just, I don't call myself a coach because I'm really particular with words. I'm a support person, and I support people with their menstrual cycle. And well, for those who don't know, I know that but it's just really stepping into who we truly are, because we're all, etched in our wombs. We have our own purpose and our own inner cosmos and our own encoding for our unique blueprints. And this, and I do that through the menstrual cycle. So how has that been for you?
It's really it's really understanding with where I'm at in my cycle, where it's time to be that social butterfly and fly out into the world, and then when to just be within your own little bubble and respect that you just need that rest and yourself. I didn't know any of that before. I knew nothing of it, and so and it really showed. It showed. So cycle awareness, it's so beautiful, and I'm so looking forward to really digging in more now, because I feel settled, digging in more, and then being able to pass that on to my daughter so that she's excited to experience that journey as well. That's so cool. I want her to be excited for it.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
It helped me a lot.
I love that.
It's got me to where I am now.
Wow.
I don't know where. Well, I know. Yeah, I know where I would have been if I hadn't. Yeah.
You probably would have gone back to work by now. You wouldn't be in the South Island. You would still be in that same environment. And fuck, man, just kudos.
Yep. Honestly, you are that, like you said, I know you don't like to call the coach, but you're that beautiful guidance. You're that light at the end of the tunnel. Honestly, that beautiful shining light.
Yeah. Thanks.
And so I thank you for your guidance, because yes, it's all good to say, yes, you guided me. I did the work, but you helped guiding me.
That's the level of partnership that I desire in my life with every connection.
Yeah.
And it's something that we get to have.
Yeah.
It's, if if you're gonna talk to me about something, I'm all ears, but the moment that nothing is done, that's when things end.
Yeah.
And and I don't care who anybody is, it's something that we get to have for ourselves. Yeah. So thank you for What's that?
Because it's all about ourselves at the end of the day.
Oh shit, I could even go off on a tangent on that. But maybe that's another one for another day.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for your time this morning. I wish you all the best, and I can't wait to see you in like
I know.
a week and a bit.
Yeah, it's 13 days to be exact.
Okay, cool. Not the only one. Love it.
No,
Alrighty. Yeah. Okay,
Thank
well, thank you. Love you so much. And yes, keep an eye out. Stay tuned for the next episode on Universe, the podcast.
Thank you.
Bye.